Today we'll take a look at linear regression in scikit-learn, linear regression in Statsmodels, and then we'll compare the two. To summarize, scikit-learn is primarily a machine learning library, whereas Statsmodels is a statistical learning library, which means Statsmodels focuses more on statistical tests, whereas scikit-learn focuses more on building pipelines. So how do you choose which one of these libraries should you consider for building models? If you're building your first model, I would recommend to go with scikit-learn as it has a much simpler interface and great documentation. On the other hand, I think Statsmodels is great if you have some prior modeling experience, but if you're just starting out, Statsmodels tools and reports may look a bit overwhelming. To start with, let's take a look at how you would train a linear model in scikit-learn. You would import linear model from sklearn. You would use the linear regression class, and you can specify whether or not you'd like to fit the intercept. Now, the intercept is something that is a property of linear models, and you can choose to either include them or not. To fit the model is very simple. All you need to do is call the fit method on x and y, where x is your exogenous variables, they are your inputs, y is the target variable that you're trying to predict. Now, without intercept, the model looks very similar, only that you set the fit intercept to false. Let's take a look at how you would train the linear model now in Statsmodels. You would define a model as sm.ols, where sm is imported as statsmodels.api. To fit the model, you would write sm.ols, and then you can notice in brackets I've written some new keywords. I've written ndog and xog. And then there is this thing called sm.addConstant. Ndog stands for endogenous, which is just another word for y. Xog stands for exogenous, which is another word for x. Now, we were discussing earlier about whether to add an intercept or not, and here is where you make that decision in Statsmodels. sm.addConstant actually adds an intercept term to x. So naturally, if you were to fit the model without intercept, you would just write model is equal to sm.ols, ndog equals y, and xog equals x. And this fits the model without an intercept. In Statsmodels, you can write the model.summary command to get a very brief statistical summary of the model. And we'll discuss a little bit more about that later. In scikit-learn, you can actually access the coefficients, the intercept, and judge the model performance on training or test data using the model.score function. Let's first make the imports. Now, this problem is about predicting the housing prices by taking a look at the median income and the average number of rooms. So let's fetch the data. And as you can see, I've already filtered out the average number of rooms and the median income. Now, our objective is to use these to predict housing prices. So let's start with the scikit-learn linear regression. I use the linear model.linear regression, and I can add the fit intercept equals true. This allows me to fit the model with the intercept. Now, even if you didn't write this, it would still fit the intercept because this is the default option, but I still like to include it. Let's run the cell, and that fits the linear model. Now let's take a look at the coefficients and intercept. So as you can see, you can use these methods or these attributes rather to print out the coefficients and the intercept. I've written some basic code here to just format the results in a nice way. So now you can see the coefficients for each feature separately. Now let's do the same thing in Statsmodels. So when you look at Statsmodels, we remember to add the sm.addConstant because that's what adds the intercept. So let's run the code, and that's it. We fit the model. We discussed earlier about the summary function. Here's what the summary looks like. As you can see, it's quite a comprehensive summary. So let's take a look at what this summary actually means. The model report can be divided into three parts. The first part is where you see the metrics and the measures of model fit. These essentially tell you whether or not the model is a good fit to the data. The second part is where you see the coefficients, the confidence intervals, and the various hypothesis tests that you do in linear regression. The third section is about checking the assumptions of linear regression. Now, I know we didn't go in too much detail on the model summary, but I'll be making a separate video to discuss specifically on this topic. So let's go back to the notebook now and try to make predictions using a model. Now, to make predictions using Statsmodels, you call the predict method. Now, when I called the predict method, it actually threw an error. What could be the reason? As we discussed earlier, when you're fitting the model, you actually add an intercept using sm.addConstant. So while making predictions, you also need to add the intercept, which is why this x does not have the intercept term, hence the error. So let's add the intercept now, which you can do here. All you have to do is just call sm.addConstant to x. So you can make the prediction in this way, and you can now see we get the predictions. Let's now compare the predictions made by the scikit-learn linear regression and the predictions made by the Statsmodels linear regression. As you can see, they're all equal, which makes sense. It's the same model, just trained on two different libraries. Okay guys, so that's it for this video. This is a new channel, so do like and subscribe and let me know in the comments what you would like me to cover in the future. Thanks for watching.